Wow, what a panel. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you all to keep your remarks a little bit brief because otherwise everyone won't get a chance to speak. So I think you know what I'm going to ask you because I sent them the first question last night because I wanted them to think about it. So AI is often described as transforming every stage of drug R&D. And where are we already seeing the biggest impact and why? And I just want them to kind of give me their little 2-minute spiel so we can just get the conversation going. So, Danielle, if you wouldn't mind starting.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, as you were saying, looking at the transformation that we're doing in using artificial intelligence, both from the whole pharmaceutical pipeline, so going from drug discovery right on to drug development. And I think the place where we're having most impact is understanding heterogeneity of patients. So with the scale and volume of data that we have, how we're really honing in to getting the right treatment to patients based on biological profiles and looking at progression of disease over time as well. And for me, having worked in this field for the past 15 years and really investing in this space, it's really exciting to see the clear impact we can have in the pharmaceutical industry.
Brilliant. That was much less than 2 minutes. Very concise. I love it. Patient heterogeneity. Jim.
Yeah, something to live up to. Yeah, great. So firstly, I can confirm that it is across the board, as you say. So we're seeing those benefits through drug discovery, development, manufacturing, and sort of the digital health pull through onto the market. If I sort of zoom in on one example, I would say it's probably the one where we got started, which was small molecule, drug design and applying AI to synthetic chemistry, which is kind of a natural place in some ways, right? Because you've got a certain set of parameters to work with and a certain frame to work within. So these days, I sort of quantify it a little bit. We're now applying that across probably about 90% of our portfolio. So that's one thing that's really important. With the previous speaker, you were talking about uptake and, how do you convince people and how does this become part of their workflow, not just a tool that's sort of dropped on top of their workflow. So we're quite proud that we've sort of revolutionized the way our chemists and scientists work. And as well as having that sort of 90% breadth, we've got about ×2 in speed. So if a synthetic chemistry campaign took, 2 months, it's now taking 1 month. If it was taking, 10 weeks, it's now taking 5 weeks. So 50% speed up and 90% penetration. It's taken some time, and there are lessons from that. But that's one area that I think we've seen real tangible benefits.
Okay, well, we'll remind me or come in and back on lessons you've learned as well, because that's great. Yes, go ahead.
Same is true for Novartis, obviously, across the entire RDC, so the research, development, commercial continuum. We're using AI in every field, right? And I'm going to zoom in. I have 2 examples, actually. One is in my field, which is in patient safety and pharmacovigilance, and the other one is in site selection. So I'll start with the site selection piece and pick up on the speed argument that you brought up, Jim. We've just recently started a study on, it's a phase 3 study with Leqvio, and it's a 14,000 patient study, and using our tool, which is called Clip AI, which looks at the sites to help us detect and select the right sites, which can get the right patients into our studies. We were able to get the right patients in 40% less time as opposed to previous times.
Wow.
So 6 months ahead of time, the entire study was recruited.
Pierre.
Yeah, maybe bringing a complementary view to that. So we look at it from the investing side of things. We invest across industries. Life sciences is one of them. We very much bring an engineering, robotics, hardware view to R&D and drug discovery. So it's the continuum. It's very much an excitement and many investments at the early stage, the discovery side, unpacking essentially novel spaces, to genetic engineering, all the way down to post-market application of AI, logistics, supply chain, optimization of productivity, cell and gene therapy, manufacturing, but decentralized at the localized level. So we've got investments literally, across the journey from the R&D all the way to the patient.
Wow. Sean, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Absci, we're really looking at the design of the actual molecule. And, we've seen AI not only speed things up, make it faster and cheaper, but now we're starting to see this fourth dimension play out, and this is being able to access new novel biology, looking at targets that have been undruggable by traditional technologies, and being able to apply AI to go after some of these hard to drug targets. And I think an example of how we've gone about it in one of our partnerships with Almirall, a Spanish dermatology company. They had a ion channel that had been known for the past 30 years. No one had figured out how to actually drug this ion channel, and we were able to use our models to be able to design an antibody that could actually block this particular ion channel for various dermatological diseases. And this is really what we're excited about is really unlocking this fourth dimension of design and being able to go after these undruggable targets and unlock new novel biology.
And last but not least, Itai, please.
Yeah, I think we also offer a complementary or maybe slightly different point of view in the sense that we provide the infrastructure to biopharmaceutical industries who are looking to take previous discoveries in the field of AI, deploy them across their workbench and across their partners. So an example of that is the recent launch of Eli Lilly TuneLab application, providing AI models developed by AI Lilly's discovery and preclinical data science, and making them available to hundreds of additional biotechs, biopharma, and different ecosystem partners. I think the underscores the maturity of AI in early development, in the sense that not only it's being used by pharma, but it's also being used as self-developed homegrown tools by pharma, who are increasingly developing their own tools and embedding them deeper into their bench rather than using third-party vendors to provide them with tools. And also in the sense that the AI is not only working, but it's showing enough promise to make additional investments in broadening the database that it's trained on and expanding it to additional use cases.
Wonderful. With all this innovation going on, I mean, are you seeing the pace of innovation and the pace of molecular discovery improving? And how are you dealing with that? It's both an opportunity, but it's also a challenge. Danielle, would you like?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting question. And I think also in the panel, it's very interesting looking at the different elements of how we scale solutions as well. So hearing about things like federated computing and how we really use this to scale. So I think within the pharma industry, we've seen a progression from doing a lot of deep discovery and disease understanding and understanding patient response to treatments using AI. And now we're at a phase of scaling that. So within the area of using generative models, especially large language models as well, where we're leveraging multimodal data to train these models with our own internal data sets and also using an external data set as well. I think this is a big opportunity to precisely scale and accelerate progress as well. So we have an AI scientist that we're building internally within GSK. And this is
like a sort of virtual AI scientist.
Yes, it's based on a large language model. And the interesting thing is using deep science based on some of the disease areas we're working on. So within respiratory medicine, oncology, and also hepatology as well, we have very clear use cases where we can accelerate discovery and also accelerate development as well. So we're increasing timescales, working really closely with the clinicians and the scientists, the domain experts as well, to build these models. And I see these as huge, not just productivity tools, but tools that allow us to scale solutions as well.
I'm going to refine that question, Jim, slightly. I mean, with all, you work in traditional drug discovery, but also you're using AI as well. And so you've got innovation coming at all and in all directions. The AI is obviously going to be generating more opportunity, but how do you weigh the kind of, that this is what the kind of human says with, like, here are the 20 molecules that the AI says are going to be blockbusters?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is we're sort of moving we're sort of changing the shape of the drug discovery funnel.
Right.
I like to think that it's kind of wider at the start because, as you say, you can just generate many, many more hypotheses. We're seeing these AI co-scientists and they're challenging us. How about this? How about that? Have you looked at this target? Have you looked at that pathway? I think that only works if you can then also narrow the funnel quite quickly at the start.
Yes.
And I think that is a part human and a part machine stroke agent task as well. And I think part of the answer to that is we're still working it out. I was at another event yesterday where we were sort of talking about this, and the speaker was presenting this agentic framework and all the AIs in there, and it's making all the decisions and it's writing the papers, it's reviewing the papers. You know, it marks its own homework. And somebody asked, well, where's the human in all this? And it's a great debate. I think the important thing is, the answer to that is we have the power. It's up to us. Most of these systems are so flexible and modular. We can decide where the human scientist comes in and where there are gains from the AI scientist. And it's more now like working with AI as a partner or a colleague,
Yes.
not as a tool or a gadget. So I think we have to change the way we think about it.
Okay, but you are still just working it out, is the answer.
I mean, there are some gains, right? So, you know, we gave examples before and other speakers did of how things are being sped up or made more productive. I think that could change by another order of magnitude if we get this kind of fully agentic scientific framework in place. That, I think, I've not seen anybody pull off a fully orchestrated, system of agents.
I want you to respond to the 10 times magnitude and also tell me how you pick your winners.
I mean, for us, speed is one thing, right? And it's a very important factor. But I like what you said as well about the quality of the molecule. Being able to create molecules that actually dock in perfectly with less side effects, which is very dear to my heart, right? That is, I think, is going to be a game changer. But are we there yet? And how are we selecting them? And is this going to be the holy grail of drug development in the future? We're in the beginnings. We don't know. We're working on it.
And then how do you think about investing in like all these opportunities? You must be getting like lots of early stage companies saying, oh, well, this AI has discovered this molecule. And it's like, well, how do you know?
Well, for us, time is the enemy. And when we invest, we've got windows of 5 to 10 years. So we need to be extremely pragmatic to where the dollars will go. If I look at it through a 10-year plus, we would do essentially at the very early stage of the journey where we can afford to spread the bets and hold. If it's a shorter window, we very much look at it closer to market. One of the application of AI we see a lot, and that's really fruitful, is very much towards patient finder applications where you've got treatments that are reimbursed, and very often patients are missed. If you look at imaging, is a classic examples. There will be probably a pathology or radiology step within the diagnostics. Take prostate cancer. Less than 5% of radiologists are trained to pick up prostate cancer on images. Patients are missed, and maybe in the future, in that case, treatments will be available. But there are many others, and what we see more and more often now are pharma companies coming back to several of our companies and others in the space who specialize in imaging, saying, we've got an issue, we've got a drug that works very well for a very specific patient subtype. There is an imaging step in a diagnostic. We never planned for it. We're missing patients. Here's all the data from the clinical trial, imaging data. Can you pick the signature? Can you build algorithms? We will deploy them on site in order to find the patient. And these are essentially the pharmas coming with their own data towards, younger companies. And you can have products in the market within a year or so. So there are plenty of innovation within the use of existing data within the business model that essentially gets us what we all want here, which is drugs in patients in the real world. So across the continuum, you'll have applications.
I mean, am I right in thinking that because of the pace of what you're doing is picking up, that 10 years from now there's going to be a lot more new molecular entities going through regulatory agencies? Is that correct? Does anyone want to leap in and have a guess at whether there are going to be lots more molecules on the market?
I think a possible alternative is a similar number, but that do different things, that are higher quality, that are better for the patient, that are safer, that are more effective, possibly more cost effective. I mean, I don't know what others think. For me, it's not just a numbers game. There's a quality piece here as well.
quality and getting it faster to the patients as well. You may not have more, but you'll have better drugs faster.
But I mean, at the same time, you've got, China becoming very active in biotechnology. And so it seems to me that there could be, lots more drugs just essentially arriving on the market. Why should it be the same number like the 50 or so that go through, 50 or 60 that go through the FDA? I mean, that number's not set in stone, is it? I mean, what's constraining it?
I mean, it's based on the need, right? So I think in the hypothesis where there's more drugs, that could be partly about choice, and we're seeing the sort of power of the patient and maybe more consumer choice. But the other angle, I think you touched on it, Danielle, as we understand patient phenotypes better, and we're starting to understand those disease endotypes with further and further resolution, you start to break a disease down, and maybe you realize that it's 5 underlying diseases instead of 1, and then your treatments start to become much more precise and personalized. That kind of smart patient personalization, I can imagine, could drive more treatments overall because you're getting exactly the right drug for you.
Yeah.
So one of the big concerns that, used to plague this industry, I would say going back about 10, 20 years, is the declining productivity. And this, they call it Arum's law, the amount of investment per molecule. And that seemed to be bottoming out, I think, last time I looked at the analysis. I mean, are you willing, is anybody willing to say that, that AI is going to buck this trend? I'm going to ask all of you pharma people, so just be ready to be picked on. Danielle, go on.
So one of the things, I think coming back to this question of we have an increase in the number of molecules being developed, I do think that one of the keys for the acceleration of AI is improving the probability of success. And this is something we have a precedence for in genomics. With the rise in genomics to discover and develop drugs, we have seen a reduction in the probability of failure of clinical trials. And I think that with artificial intelligence as well, we will see a similar trend, and we are seeing a similar trend. It's allowing us to fail faster. And we've seen that in our own pipeline as well, where we can make go, no-go decisions with greater precision. I think it's true that with AI and with the era of information as well, we're generating a lot of information as well. And I think also that's where we need to be laser focused on what is a particular use case and how do we prioritize that probability of success as well. And this is where AI first can be a big game changer in understanding the use case and the utility and really unlocking what that means in the pipeline from end to end. So how are we using artificial intelligence to accelerate and impact each part of the pipeline as well?
Okay. Jim, are you more efficient with AI?
Are
you getting more efficient at making molecules with AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I won't repeat the stat about quicker. I've made that point. I think it is also more productive. So whether you use the word productivity or efficiency, right? You're either kind of finding that you need fewer resources to do the same thing, or if you keep the resources fixed, there's more output. So I think what we're finding with the sort of closed loop in silico drug design is that you're able to go round that loop, I don't know, thousands of times in an afternoon, where one pass through that cycle might have taken 2 weeks previously. So I think if you think about productivity that way, how many candidates am I generating, small or large molecule actually? The way I think about it is you can try out many in a virtual space before you actually make them for real. And that for me is a massive productivity boost, because you've removed the wet lab bottleneck from the cycle, at least initially, before you go to the last mile.
Selim?
It's probably an increase in the probability of success if we apply AI in the right way. AI isn't going to solve all the issues, right? AI, for us, AI is an augmentation. It's augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence, because we have great scientists in the company, and it helps them do things faster, reiterate much faster, and come up with a high quality product compound. And I don't think it's a numbers game. I don't think it's going to be like 100 molecules out the door and all of your costs are going to go down. magically. It's not going to happen, but it's going to create better outcomes.
Has it changed the investment case yet? I mean, yes? I mean, if it's more efficient, then
It's more efficient. You get to the nose much faster in a cheaper way. So I think there's a time efficiency point for sure. So at the start of the journey, we're seeing plenty of positive, but you still need to go through the hoops afterwards. So the rest of the 5 to 7 years will still come your way. Having said that, if you take productivity in its broader sense from a bottom line standpoint for pharmas and other players, there will be plenty of efficiency improvement at the production level, for instance, in supply chain. Talk of tariffs and discussion on pricing and pressure at the top. All this impacts the viability of a drug program, and this is where we see AI really having its biggest impact at short term. Long term, it's in the biology. Short term, it's literally running the business in a much more efficient way. And so, looking at it holistically, it's a big thumbs up from us.
So would you consider making more investments, in drugs because the sort of efficiency, the kind of...
Oh, absolutely. I think about a third of the investment we make are in life science, and at least half of that are related to the drug discovery and development.
So we can pay you less for drugs and you'll still invest?
Absolutely.
Do either of you, Sean, or do you have any views on efficiency and what that means?
Yeah, just putting some numbers around this. If you look at ABS-201, which we're developing, it's an antibody against the prolactin receptor for androgenic alopecia as well as endometriosis. We were able to develop this drug and get it in the clinic in roughly 24 months. Normally it takes 3 to 5 years to actually get a drug into the clinic. And it was a total investment of roughly $15 million, compared to a typical $50 million investment to get a drug into the clinic. And if you look at next year with this particular drug, we're going to have a phase 2 proof of concept readout, and we'll from start from leveraging the AI to design the molecule to having a phase 2 proof of concept readout will be roughly 3.5 years. And so, I mean, that's really a collapse in the overall timeline and overall cost. And I think the big piece that investors and the community want to see is, okay, you got there faster and cheaper, but is the drug efficacious? And that gets back to the quality and making sure that you're developing the molecule to ultimately achieve the biology and the outcomes that you want. But we see this as a big pivotal readout in the field of AI. Again, showing that you can get there not only faster and cheaper, but you can have the outcomes that you predict.
Itai, do you want to add in?
As far as anecdotal findings go, which I think is a lot of what people are still, clinging on in AI, as there isn't a lot of kind of processes that have reached an outcome yet. A few years ago, AI skeptic, chief medical officer of mid-stage company told me, well, I could pay this and that digital CRO $10 million and they'll save me $9 million in drug development, or some digital widget to optimize patient recruitment and this and that. And I think to some extent, as much as innovation pours into pharma R&D and development, so will the prices of per molecule development go up, not down. The biggest lever here is in reducing the number of failures and improving the probability of success in reaching the clinic. And in that regard, I think we will see strong results. I'd maybe mention even another angle to it in the sense of creating more transparency in the early stage and in drug licensing deals. Whereas today, a lot of early stage development and the majority of discovery today happens in small biotechs, not in big pharma. Big pharma need to team up with the small biotechs in order to help them reach the clinic and reach regulatory approval. And today there is very little transparency in that space. And part of pharma going into a more data-driven R&D is also creating much more transparency about the different attributes of molecules. Whereas today, a lot of the data is anecdotal, biased, determined by the developers, and hard for the sponsors to really determine the quality of what they're in licensing.
If everyone, though, has the same kind of basic models and biology is the same and there's lots of transparency, how do all these companies compete? How do you all do something different? And obviously we're all friends here, but, you know, once you leave your vicious competitors, do you have some thoughts about that? How you distinguish yourself in this future we're coming towards, Danielle?
Yeah, I think the differentiator is data. So with the data and the pipeline, I mean, we work on slightly different pipelines in our different companies, but data is a differentiator. And you've raised a good point that in this era, we can think of the foundation models, that foundation models are a big game changer. And this is something that's accessible to everybody, to all of us here, that we can access the same foundation models. And we think in the past 2 years, just how much breakthrough there's been in the volume of publicly available data sets where we can train foundation models on computational pathology. So there's a lot of understanding of a deep type of phenotyping data, which is digital pathology slides. So when you go for biopsy and getting these biopsies and being able to distinguish different tumor or tissue types, it's a big game changer that we can do that at scale and at pace now due to the high degree of competition in the foundation models we've been able to build around this. But then if we're all, this is a big equalizer, I think, across the industry, but the differentiator is the data and how we leverage that data to make decisions.
Data, Jim?
I think that's spot on. I think the answer is always it's not the AI, which sometimes surprises people. Over time, AI will become commoditized. We will all figure out how to apply this to drug discovery and drug development. Okay, there's some differentiated advantages now while some sort of surge ahead in certain areas. But I think you're right. I think it will come back to what do we do? We're medicines companies. We make strategic choices. So, you know, we believe we have a great pipeline at AstraZeneca, of course, that's uniquely diverse, and we generate data on that that's uniquely ours, just the same as you have data that's uniquely yours. And that's our advantage. That's what we're going to use to understand biology better and drug development better. So data, I agree. I might just add on expertise. I mean, you have to work hard to differentiate yourself there as well, because expertise can be sort of commoditized, if that's the right word, or at least we've all got access to the same, let's say that, generally speaking, we've all got access to the same expertise around the world. But we do play in different geographies and we do sort of have different organizational cultures. And the way you bring the expertise to understand that data, if you play your cards right, can be a differentiator as well.
Selim?
Spot on. Both of them are absolutely correct. And what I would like to add to that is no different from how it is today, right? As you said, we have the same scientists, we have the same pool of people that we go to, and AI is but a tool. So if you give me a hammer, I won't be able to create the same stool that Jim would create with a hammer and a saw, right? Because he has more skills, he has different skills, he wants to do things differently, he has different ideas. It's all about the ideas as well. It's where the need is.
Right, but expertise was lumpier in the old world, right? And kind of like, you know, if you had a good oncology unit with the oncology people, then, you know, you'd probably stick to oncology, you'll buy it in. It's sort of like now you can all see the same sorts of things, right? And it's like, well, maybe we will do oncology, maybe we'll do weight loss. I don't know. I mean, you don't think so? No? Why? Tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying AI is a tool. I mean, we all use AI. AI is democratizing a lot across the stage, across the globe. But it's not a magical bullet. It's not the solution. It's not the end of it all. And once you have AI, you can create anything you want, and you don't need 50,000 people and 10 years behind you. It's not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe we're all wrong.
I'm open to it. Now, look. Let's hear from the audience. I've got some more questions. There's a gentleman there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 questions and I'm going to open it up to people to answer what they want. So yeah, gentleman down there. There's another gentleman there, and then there's just grab anyone. Okay, just give someone. Just give them a microphone. That's it. Right, you go first.
Hi. Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
I'm from the NHS. I work here. The question was basically, you know, we know historically the trials, they take time. The regulators take their own time approving a drug. the question is, has that changed in the regulatory environment? Has there been any changes to adapt to the AI-driven data that can come in now faster and maybe more accurate than what it used to be in the past?
Great, wonderful. Regulatory changes. And who's got the other microphone? There you are. Great, go for it. And then just find someone else. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much for inspirational discussion. I'm from a small drug discovery company in Oxford called the Droto. I wanted to ask a more practical question. So you obviously sit in the bleeding edge of deploying AI. What would be your advice to the NHS? How can the NHS become the platform on which we can deploy solutions that sort of public can see quickly which solutions work and which don't? And how can you advise NHS? It's almost like if it is a platform, then could it be more than one NHS and they have access to the same data and compete? And yeah, I have so many questions as well. So previously we saw the NHS talking about mostly operational AI, sort of measuring things and then getting the patient do the right thing. How do we sort of, as a community, make NHS do the right thing and hire more people who know about deployment of AI, right? Because having AI that works is only part of the sort of solution. It's very important to also be able to deploy it effectively, right? You have obviously amazing databases that are all compartmentalized, right? And you have your own sort of adapters.
Okay, great. All right, we'll stop with that. Great. Regulation. Who wants to take regulation? Anybody? Go. Okay, Selim, you look. No, nobody wants to take regulation.
I think the important thing is a constant dialogue, right? So I'm pleased to say, and I'm sure other people, because for other people here as well, is we do have that dialogue and we do get invited to discuss, because what we find that is reassuring is a lot of curiosity from the regulators, because they want to keep up, right? I think it's necessary and meaningful for them to lag the bleeding edge a bit, right? That makes sense, because regulation should somehow be conservative while allowing room for innovation. But I think keeping that dialogue going, and we'll often speak to them about the kind of innovations we're working on, and we learn from each other. And have that conversation together. The other thing I've seen that's reassuring is we have seen, white papers and positions from regulators around the world about how to sort of tackle the challenge of AI. So how do you, okay, if we've got a fixed statistical model, we know how to assess that and assess it for transparency. If you have a model that's constantly sort of retraining on data like AI or machine learning, how do you do that? I think there has been some forward thinking there as to how you would regulate such a model. What are the guardrails? When would you have to revalidate it, etc.?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why do we care if the AI is a black box when, a lot of the drugs we have on the market, we don't know how they work anyway, and they just go through trials and we know if they're safe and effective?
Well, I don't know that I do care so much. I mean, in the same way that probably none of you particularly care how this works. I mean, inside, right? What you care is that you put inputs in and you get outputs out, and it does that in a predictable way every single time. That's what's important about a tool. The whole conversation about how opaque your box is I think a little bit misleading. The point is, do you have something with predictable inputs and outputs, and is it safe?
Yeah,
that's the important thing.
So yeah, and I think this is a really interesting question. I like what you've said about opening up the dialogue. I mean, I must say from my perspective, I do care because, a lot is at stake here. So at GSK, one of the things that I enjoy working with is we have the AI for development, AI for drug discovery, but also an independent team, which is all around responsible AI. And I think this is something that's really important, that we're interrogating our models to understand what are the edge cases. Who are the drugs not working for? If we've trained our models on a particular data set,
right,
is there someone out of the distribution as well? And I think that's where we need to be a step ahead of the curve in terms of regulation as well. And it's important we ask ourselves these questions, and we're critical of the models that we create as well. Because it is a regulated industry. It's important we have those guardrails and that regulation. But how can we be proactive in the space of AI as well in in self-critiquing our own models and our own frameworks as well. So I think that's
a great answer,
a piece that we've seen as really encouraging with the FDA is them coming out and saying they want to actually replace animal models with AI models, and we see this as being able to really streamline, our ability to ultimately get drugs into the clinic. If you can ultimately use an AI model to predict the immunogenicity, polyspecificity, the overall efficacy, that's going to really streamline the time it takes to ultimately get a drug into the clinic and ultimately approved. And so these are steps that we find very encouraging from the FDA.
Who wants to give the NHS some advice from drug companies and figure out how to interact with the NHS?
I think it's pretty much the same question basically, because literally hot off the press a couple of days ago, Novartis met with the FDA to talk about, because the FDA is very open. They said, tell us about your AI tools, the ones you're using and you've implemented, and how you've implemented them. So we have created an AI tool called AE Brain in 2019, when nobody was talking about AI or AEs, right? We've implemented it in 2019, and until now we've been using it in various aspects of AE detection, and we've talked with the FDA about that a couple of days ago, showed them how we've done it. It's GXP compliant, the whole spiel, right? And I think that's what's important. The important thing is that regulators and the industry need to talk and collaborate and learn from each other and move on. And to your point about the iPhone is also a black box, it's about the output. I totally agree, which is what scares people, because if you put the same question twice into a large language model, you get 3 different results. And I think that's the problem. That's where people are afraid.
But you're not going to give anyone any advice about the NHS?
I'm going to give advice.
Great. All right.
I think this is actually an area where I'm really optimistic. I think that we've really opened up the dialogue at a government level as well, in thinking how can we be thought leaders in terms, not just thought leaders, but actual leaders in terms of the engineering infrastructure and cloud compute available. So I think the piece of advice to the NHS is not to completely reinvent the wheel. There's so many lessons learned, both within pharma, but also with the tradition of large data sets within the UK ecosystem itself. We think of things like Genomics England, the Biobank. What are the things that went well, but the things that didn't go so well as well? And I think thinking really carefully of how do we build these frameworks of good, trusted research environments. So having the right guardrails and the right regulation, but at the same time, having a good space where you can do innovation. Because the problem with a lot of these research environments is that they're restrictive for doing any sort of cloud computing or any sort of scale. So I think there's a huge window of opportunity. And this is where we're seeing a lot of dialogue between industry stakeholders and different partners as well, and the governments as well. So I think it's time for optimism.
I'm going to give you some advice for the NHS. Do more real-world trials that figure out which of their drugs work best, and who needs to get them. Because the thing is they're not going to do all of that, are they? They're going to do the bits where no criticism. You're there to sell drugs, so the NHS needs to figure out which ones work and for whom. Okay, now one more question, lady up there. And then that will be the last one, I'm afraid. Make it short, because I'm just running to the edge.
Hi, great talk so far.
Yep.
My name's Caitlin Norris-Gray. I work for Flagship Pioneering, which is a biotech company based in Boston. I'm really excited about AI discovery in drugs, but one concern that I have is convergence of these AI models to targets and diseases that have already been well studied and have lots of this data, which we're talking about. So I was just wondering, how do you inject some novelty such that the efficiency gains for going on these targets and areas that are well discovered doesn't mean that we lose out on other areas that have unmet need?
Great. Who wants to take that?
I think in part it comes back to the data again, right? So I think you mentioned genomic data before. So and somebody else mentioned that we do have access to large databases, thankfully, where we can do this kind of unbiased scan across a genome or a phenome. And so I think that's where we're starting to find novelty. So in the past, we might have taken an approach where, you notice a trend in the literature, you pick that up, you do some in-house experiments, you sort of gradually evolve that hypothesis. Now you can almost take a completely objective look across an entire data set and say what's interesting in here, and that's where I think there's more chance of digging out the novelty. And what's changed there, of course, is AI and tools like that allow you to mine that much more easily.
Well, I think you know why this is my favourite panel, right? Aren't they great? I think they're wonderful. So put your hands together and thank them all very much. Thank you. You're brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.